Welcome and thank you everybody for tuning into Webinars for Busy Lawyers today. These are monthly webinars that in just 20 to 30 minutes will give you practical information that you can take right back to your office and put into action. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Sarah Reiff-Hekking. Sarah is a coach and time matters expert with almost 20 years of experience helping people create and achieve their goals. She draws upon her background and experience as a psychologist and as a researcher to create elegant, out-of-the-box solutions for her clients. She was on the faculty of UMass Medical School for 6 years, founded True Focus Coaching in 2005, and was a coach on staff at the Hallowell Center for more than 5 years. As a business-savvy entrepreneur, she grew a successful coaching practice during a down economy. Before I turn it over to Sarah, I'd like to let you know that we'll have time at the end of her presentation to address all of your questions. All you need to do is to put them into the chat box, and I will relay them to Sarah at the very end. Sarah, take it away.
Thanks so much for having me. And I want to encourage anybody who's listening right now, whether you're listening live or to the recording, just to take a moment or two and turn off anything that might beep or buzz at you during the presentation so that we can be totally focused together. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here. So you are in the right place if you think, I can't believe I have so much to do at work and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Or you might be thinking, if I could just sit down and grind through it, I'd be fine. Or you might know you can't do it all at work and home, but you don't know how you're ever going to say no when everything seems so important. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to cover today. And I want to preface this with the fact that I'm going to cover as much as I can in these 20 minutes that we have. And this is a topic I often teach much more deeply on. So I'll tell you how to take it further at the end of the program if you have any questions. But what we're going to cover is what procrastination and overwhelm are and why the projects you've planned to do slide into the next day and keep renting time on your to-do list. We're also going to talk about how to bust through procrastination and overwhelm using my 5-step system. And I'm going to share what positive self-talk really is when it works and why it's only one piece of the puzzle. But before we get into all of that, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. Susan introduced me at the top of the hour. But this is me on the left-hand side. My son, Matthew's in the middle. My husband, Brett, is on the right. Matthew's 16. So I want you to know I'm a working mom. I'm juggling lots of things myself. I run my own business. This is us on a family vacation in Acadia a couple of years ago doing what we love to do together, which is hiking, biking, and kayaking. And I just want you to know that everything I'm going to share with you today, I have worked through myself. I've had times in my own life when I've had piles of procrastination, things that were really costing me money that I wasn't getting to, or things that actually were very valuable and were worth money that I wasn't getting to because of my own problems with procrastination and overwhelm. So I want you to know I've been there, and everything I'm sharing with you today, I've used for years with clients. I've created some of it myself, some of it I have adapted from other best practices, but I want you to know it's helpful and it works. So let's first talk about what procrastination and overwhelm are. So procrastination is that act of delaying something that you know you can do, okay? And it's more than just delaying. Sometimes we delay things on purpose. It's the delaying that just becomes a habit. It's something you know you can do and you need to do it and you choose instead to not do it. All right, that's procrastination. Now, overwhelm is the emotion that often precedes procrastination. Overwhelm is that feeling that you can't quite think straight, you're not sure what to do next, you just really don't know how to take action from where you are. So overwhelm is the emotion that prompts procrastination often. Sometimes the emotion that prompts procrastination might be freezing, avoidance, or doing something altogether different than what you intend to do. So what I want you to notice here is that there is an emotion related to managing your time and your activities. And emotions are one of the things that productivity folks really don't talk too much about, but are really important in terms of increasing your productivity, and absolutely important in terms of stepping through procrastination and figuring out a way to change that for yourself. So the reason why there's a table on the screen there is because I had a client a while ago who is a furniture maker, and he really was stuck in procrastination and overwhelm when it came to getting to the next level in his business. And I know as lawyers, you don't create a physical product, but you do have products that you create. And I like to tell this story because it really helps identify what procrastination and overwhelm feel like and how they can affect you in the long term. So John said to me, Sarah, you know, I really want to create a nest egg for myself, and I have a great little product. It looks just like this. It's a little Christmas tree product that people love to buy. The problem is I hate to make it. So we got into more conversation about how he could create a nest egg for himself and where were the opportunities within his business to do so. And we kept coming back around to this little Christmas tree. And what he would say is, I really, really hate making it. And even though people like to buy it, and finally I was like, why do you hate making it? And he said, because I delay doing it, I delay doing it, I delay doing it, I keep procrastinating, I keep not doing it all year long. And then 2 weeks before the Christmas sale, I go in the studio, I crank out as many as I can, I don't sleep much, I don't eat much, all I do is that, and I hate it. And then I go to the Christmas sale and I sell out. So what he was doing is all year long feeling bad, and that procrastination and delay of doing the activity that he knew he needed to do to make some of these trees really took a physical toll. He would feel it in his gut, in his shoulders, in his back, right? And then he'd have those 2 weeks where he would just plow through it until the deadline of the sale. So what I want you to know is that once John and I worked together for a while, we were able to break down the process and change the process by which he made the trees. So he chunked doing a little bit each week over a year and was able to make twice as many trees. And not only was he able to make twice as many trees, but he found that he actually enjoyed it, because it wasn't this horrible nonstop activity that just he avoided, and then did nonstop and hated. What he found was when he did a little bit each week, then he kept thinking about other trees he might make, and it actually fueled the creative process for him. And ultimately, he made twice as many as he had the year before. He sold them all, so he doubled his revenue on that product that year. Pretty amazing result. So what I want you to know is that we all have these habits that we get into. And for John, it was a well-worn path. He didn't know how else to make those trees in a way that would be easier for him until we really broke it down and thought it through. So even if you're feeling like the only way I know how to handle deadlines is to dive headlong into them, I want you to know there are different ways. I've worked with lots of people on these issues, and it is possible to create a different way of doing things for yourself that works better for you, even if you don't think it's going to. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about procrastination and overwhelm and why they matter. I'm just going to do a little time check here. I want to make sure we stay on time. So procrastination and overwhelm matter because they keep us in that perpetual state of feeling bad, where we procrastinate, we get more overwhelmed, we procrastinate more. It creates this negative spiral, and it becomes a way of coping. It becomes the only way we know how to handle doing that particular activity, just like John and making those Christmas trees. So let's talk about my 5 steps to bust through procrastination and overwhelm. The first one is to recognize what's overwhelming you, what I like to call find the beast. So I'm going to talk about procrastination and overwhelm as though it's a huge dragon that lives outside your village, okay? Now, it's not a little tiny dragon. It's a huge 5-story tall dragon, and it's dangerous. It breathes fire. It has a tail as big as your house. It could injure somebody or destroy a building in one swat. It's a really dangerous creature. So if there was a dangerous creature that lived outside your village, you would want to find him. Yeah, you'd want to know where he lived. So the first thing is to find the beast. And the way you find the beast here is you start to recognize what's overwhelming you. What is the thing that is triggering that, oh my gosh, I can't think, I don't know what to do next kind of feeling, or the I just want to do something else feeling. All right, so start to notice what that beast is. Find the beast. That's the first step. So for instance, one of my clients, I'll call him Ted, was having a really hard time getting to making his marketing phone calls. And the way he recognized that he wasn't making those outgoing marketing phone calls was because it was the thing on his to-do list that he kept copying over from week to week to week. So that might be how you start to recognize what's overwhelming you. That thing that you keep copying over on your to-do list from week to week. So that's a tip you can take right out of the training right now, right today, and see what is it that you keep copying over but not doing, or the thing you keep scheduling time for in your calendar but still not getting to. That's a hint to what might be overwhelming you. So step 1, find the beast. Step 2 is calm the inner fear discussion. What I like to say is tame the dragon, okay? So if there's a dragon that lives outside your village, you're going to want to make friends with that dragon, right? So he stays over in his area, he stays outside the village. You and your family and your community are safe. So same thing here. Once you recognize what's overwhelming you, like with Ted and making those outgoing marketing calls, the next thing I said to Ted was, so what is it that gets in the way of you making those calls? And he said, I hate making them. I feel like I'm wasting people's time and energy. I'm bugging them and they don't want to hear from me. And one of the things that you will notice when you start to recognize what's overwhelming you, there's going to be a whole bunch of negative thinking around that thing. So I want you to get clear about what is that internal fear discussion? What is that negative thinking that's happening? And I want you to create a positive discussion that's consistent with productivity. So for Ted, when we started to dive into it, I said to him, has there ever been a time when you've been able to make a marketing phone call and it's gone well? And he said, yes. Sometimes what I find is I have really busy clients and they're often repeat clients. And what happens is if I call them and reach out to them, they're really happy to hear from me. They're super busy. They don't have time to call. But when I call, I can solve a problem for them. So we turned that into a positive internal discussion that was consistent with productivity. So before he sat down to make those marketing calls, he would say to himself, I'm going to go help some people solve some problems today. Let me see who I can help solve problems. I like to do this. Let me make a couple of specific calls. Okay. And then in his calendar, he would, on 3 different days in the week, make specific appointments with himself to call specific people. Instead of making marketing calls, he would be very specific. Say, call Mrs. Smith about X project. Check in with Mr. Jones about Y project. See if Mr. Smith needs help with upcoming projects. Okay, so he would not only stop the negative conversation inside his own head, he'd replace it with a positive one and then also write it in his calendar so that he could remind himself to stay positive when he was making those calls. It made all the difference, and not only did he make more of those calls, but as a result, he made a lot more money. So step 2 is calm that inner fear discussion by taming the dragon. So whose desk looks like that? Oftentimes our desks look like this, or our brains feel like this, and that's really what leads to the overwhelm. Or oftentimes what happens these days is it's not necessarily about the physical space, but it's also the electronic space, right? So how many windows do you have open on your desktop right now, right? That creates that internal clutter that is sometimes makes it really hard to focus. So if this is how you feel, you're not alone, and I know how to help solve these problems. Okay, so step 3 is enable your routine and your environment to support, productivity. So this step has 2 parts of it. And what I want you to think about is if there's a giant dragon that lives outside your village, you would want to create some kind of a containment system for that dragon, right? Just like in Jurassic World or Jurassic Park, where they had life-size dinosaurs, dragons, if you will, they created a zoo, right? They created ways to keep those animals away from the people. Same thing here. I want you to figure out a way to keep the procrastination, the overwhelm, that emotion related to the difficulty of getting things done, whatever it is for you, at bay, okay? And there's a couple of really clear ways to do that. One is enable your routines to support productivity. So what is a routine that supports productivity? It might be what I call a flexible template for your week. This is something you can take off the call right now. A flexible template for your week that starts with when are you working? When are you not working, right? So you're really clear, these are the hours that I'm going to work. And then you put in the must-do work activities, the must-do home activities, and the must-do fun activities. And the reason why I want you to make sure you have the fun activities scheduled in is because our brains can't always stay in the same way of being. And if you're trying to work too hard, work too long, then you're going to find that your brain takes you sideways into things that you didn't want to be doing or that seem like not so productive. It's because you're not giving yourself any downtime. We actually have some pretty good research these days that is showing that if you take downtime in the evening that is doing activities that's not related to your work activities, guess what? You're more refreshed and more productive the next day. That's why I want to make sure that you plan in fun activities, because it's actually going to make you more productive when you sit down to work. Okay? So enable your routines to support productivity. The other thing I want you to think about is enabling your environment to support productivity. And I mean your physical environment. Your physical environment predicts about 80% of what you do. All right? 80. So that means that however you've set up your office setup or wherever you choose to work is going to predict what you're going to get done. It's going to predict whether you get interrupted a million times or whether you're able to focus and dive more deeply. So I want you to control whatever you can in your environment that's going to allow you to stay focused for a longer period of time on one activity so you can actually dive deep into it and make it be done. All right. So set up your environment to support productivity. And this is a tip that one of my clients used to get a promotion. It was her single most important strategy. And what she did was 3 times a day, she took activities related to a project that she wanted to move forward. She took all of the materials she needed. She went to a conference room. She sat down and worked on that project. She closed the door. She didn't take her phone with her. She didn't tell anybody where she was. She was at a meeting, and she got those 3 hours at different times during the day really focused on stuff that had to get done. She increased her productivity so much that she got a promotion. All right. So what I want you to do is think about how you set up your environment to support the productivity. How do you give yourself the space for a deep dive when you need it so that you can really move through things in a more straight line. So step 3, enable your routine and your environment to support productivity, engineer your containment system. And this is also that piece that I promised earlier on about why positive self-talk is only one piece of the puzzle. Positive self-talk and all of that positive mindset conversation that is so popular these days is really, really helpful. And you also need to set up your environment to support productivity because it predicts so much of what you're going to do. All right. So this is a client of mine, Tracey Ingalls. She's also a lawyer. And for anybody who's thinking, there's no way that I can improve my productivity and work for fewer hours in the day and take weekends off, I want to let you know it is possible. So Tracy and I work together, and when we first started working together, it was really hard for her to stop working, leave work at work, go home, do something else in the evening, and also to have at least 24 hours off in a row over the weekend, okay? Now I can tell you she has lots of evenings off. Most weekends she takes off, and her billable hours have increased, and she's feeling much more relaxed and knows everything is handled. So I want you to know it is possible, even if you're in a place where you feel like, I don't know what to do, all right? It's probably because you need some support from outside of your own head, outside of your own environment to help you make some shifts. Okay, step number 4 is get support. Now, I want you to think about support that's going to help you move forward in a way that works best for you. And the concept here is, would you defeat a dragon on your own? And the answer is that stuff only happens in fairy tales. So if you know anybody who's productive and successful that you really admire, if you peel back the curtain, what you'll know is that there's somebody in the back room helping them out, even if it looks like they're doing it all alone. So what I want you to do is start to ask yourself, what is the kind of support that I need in order to be at my best and to be more focused during the workday, right? And to chip away at those things that I'm avoiding doing. All right. So that could be a buddy system with a colleague. It could be somebody that you're checking in with during the week to say, I'm going to get started on this project. I'm going to tell you how far I've gotten by this day. It could be an administrative person that's helping you handle some administrative activities so you can actually focus on the things that only you can do. All right. So there's many ways to get support. Sometimes it has to do with coworkers. Sometimes it has to do with friends and colleagues. Sometimes it has to do with professional support through either a therapist or a professional business coach or a professional time management coach. So think about all range of support and ask yourself, what do I really need to move forward on this particular issue in a way that's going to help me the most? All right. So here's the thing, you need the right support for you. We are all wired differently. So that means that the support that works for me may not be the support that works for you. So I want you to get really clear about what you think would help you the most. Start with what has ever worked, lean into that, and get the right kind of support. Just like this guy who's climbing a glacier here, right? He's got an ice axe, he's got crampons on his feet, he's being supported and belayed from above with that harness, right? He's not up there with ballet shoes and a tutu, right? He's got the right support for that situation. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or you're procrastinating on something, I want you to ask yourself, what is the support I need in this specific situation? Okay? And lean into that. All right, so before I get to step 5, I want to tell you how to take it further because I promised that we would, and I don't want anybody to miss this part. So one of the things that I want to share with you is that I have an ebook based on this talk called I Know What to Do, I'm Just Not Doing It, 5 Steps to Bust Through Procrastination and Overwhelm, that you are welcome to get a copy of. All you need to do is go to truefocustips.com. That's truefocustips.com. truefocustips.com. And you can enter in your email address and you should get that ebook right away. Also, because I really love working with lawyers and I really have a passion for LOMAP's mission here, I want to support you. And if you'd like to have a private conversation with me to get a sense about how you might get a grip on time and get to the next level in your life and your business, I would be happy to take an hour and spend time with you and do what I call a Time Matters Success Strategy session. So the way you apply for that strategy session is you go to my website, which is truefocuscoaching.com. That's truefocuscoaching.com. you'll see a work with me button, and then you'll see a link for the strategy session. So you can apply there, and as long as you qualify, we'll get you in for a time to talk with me. It's not a call that I'm going to sell on at all. It is a call to answer your questions and for me to get to know you and help you figure out what your next best move will be to really get a grip on time and get to that next level in your life and your business. Okay, so that's how you take it further. Step number 5 in the 5 steps to bust through procrastination and overwhelm is keep restarting until you're where you need to be, okay? Dragons need tending. If there's a dragon that lives outside your village, you're gonna keep tending. You're gonna keep going out and making sure that he is at bay, that he is in his containment system and away from the village and everybody is safe. Even if you've made friends with him, right? You still don't want him just wandering around on his own. He's a dangerous animal. So same thing here for you. I want you to keep restarting tending your projects. Keep restarting. Something gets finished because we restart, we restart, we restart. All right? The other thing I want you to restart is walking through these 5 steps. Because once you've recognized one thing that's overwhelming you and walk through the steps, set up your routine and your environment to support productivity, created a positive conversation that's consistent with productivity, gotten support, I want you to then go through those steps again and notice again what's overwhelming you. Where is the emotion coming up? It might be freezing or avoidance, could be overwhelm. But what I want you to do is keep recognizing where the beast is and walking through those steps. It's really going to make a big difference for you because this is not a one and done. You have to keep going back after it. All right, so that is the end of the presentation today. I'm happy to take a few questions. I think Susan's going to pop back. And just so you know, there's my website there, truefocuscoaching.com, and also the link for the True Focus Tips where you can find the ebook at truefocuscoaching.com. If you go to work with me, and you'll see a link for strategy session if you want to apply for one of those spots. Okay, so Susan, you're muted. There you go.
All right. Sarah, thank you so much for this outstanding presentation. We really, really appreciated it. And you really gave us a lot to think about. So we do have some questions for you. So one of the clinicians here leads an ADHD group. And so I'm wondering if there are any tips that you might have for people who also struggle with ADHD.
Absolutely. So all of the things I teach are ADHD friendly. I actually have worked with a lot of adults that have ADHD. That's attention deficit disorder. It's also called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's all the same thing. And the thing that we know about adults that have ADHD is that the areas of their brain that have to do with noticing that time is passing and planning and sequencing are not as strong as some other people's brains. All right. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that that's something that they need some extra support with. So you want to make sure that when you're working on time management, when you're working on busting through procrastination and overwhelm, that you're setting up systems that work for how your brain works. Because sometimes what happens is productivity folks give you a system that doesn't work for how you think, and then it's just not going to set you up for success.
Makes sense. A few more questions. I have actually a question that came to my mind about your physical environment. It reminded me of the study of semiotics, how kind of signs and symbols in the environment kind of give us little messages. I was wondering if there's something specific that people should think about in setting up their environment to send themselves the right messages to stay on top of things and stay organized.
Absolutely. I think there's some things that you can do that, again, it depends on how your brain works. So lots of us do really well if you're visual, like right over there in my office, there's a big wall calendar that has all 12 months for the year mapped out, and I have the big rocks written out on there. Okay, so it helps me stay aware of the big things that are coming up. And I have big things professionally, I also have big things personally, right? So it helps me kind of anchor when I need to get work done around those activities that are bigger things that happen throughout my year. I think the other thing that you want to do is get really clear about what your priorities are, and maybe have a list of those somewhere visually in front of you. So for some people, once you identify priorities, it's easy to keep in your mind. For other people, it's not. So if it's not easy for you, then write them down, have it in a place that you're going to see it regularly. For some people, it is posted on the wall in front of them. For some people, it's going to be on their computer monitor. It might be an electronic Post-it note, or it might be something in their to-do list or their calendar, but that keeps those priorities front of mind and reminds you to check in with that.
Makes sense. So a couple of other questions about getting support. Who would be a good person? I mean, like, how should we choose who we ask for support? And then once we know who we want to ask, how do we make that ask?
Great question. So the first thing is to get clear on what kind of support you need. There are lots of people that want to support us, but don't necessarily support us in the way we need in the moment. Okay. So find somebody who can support you in the way you need. And then, depending on who that person is, there's going to be different ways to ask them. So it might be a coworker, or it might be a team member, an administrative team member that can help you stay accountable to a work plan that you put together on a bigger project, coming up to some deadlines. It might be a check-in appointment. Sometimes it might be what I call locked-in accountability, where you actually sit down, you work on something at the same time that one of your partners is working on something, and you're really clear, I'm working on X and you're working on Y, and we're not going to let each other do something else, right? For a particular period of time. It's what I call locked-in accountability. And that can really be helpful. But I think what you need to do is first identify what you need, and then ask for support from people that you know can support you in that way. And it might be as simple as, I'm having a hard time meeting this deadline. I need some support so that I get some work done ahead of time. Or it might, and then also sometimes if emotions really are getting in your way all the time, you might want to think about working with a therapist, or you also might want to think about working with a business coach if it really feels like more a time management piece. But again, you also want to make sure that those people, even the professionals, can support you in the way that you need to be supported. So I'd have a bit of a conversation. Say, this is what I'm looking for. How does that sound to you? Do you have any other suggestions? Does that feel like something you can do?
Thank you. That is so helpful. So I want to thank you, Sarah, for sharing your time and advice with us today. We will be providing a copy of the recording and slides on our website. You'll be able to find that at www.masslomap.org. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today and remind you to mark your calendars for next month on January 16th, 2019, when Brett Birding will join us and tell us a little bit about apps for Mac. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.